Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Diego, and this video is about USCIS Form I-751. Lift the conditions off of your 2-year conditional residency green card. Come on along, pay attention to this video, very important. If you do not lift the conditions off of your 2-year green card within 90 days of it expiring, then you will be issued a letter of deportation and removal from the United States and face a immigration judge. So it's a very important video on how to fill out this form. First, we're going to go to page 1 of 11 of USCIS Form I-751, Petition to remove conditions on residence, and make sure you check the expiration date and the addition date. This video was made in January of 2025, so it's important you check the addition date and the expiration date when you prepare this form. Make sure it's current. Okay, we're going to start on page 1. Part 1, information about you, the conditional resident. This is the person who is lifting the conditions off of the 2-year green card. This is the beneficiary. They want to know your family name, your given name, your middle name. The immigration want to know other names you may use. For example, you may have a made-up name for your Facebook account or your Instagram account. Immigration want to know what that is. Other names used. You're going to fill out number 5, your country of birth. My wife Karina is from Venezuela. She was born in Venezuela. The country of citizenship. Well, that's going to be, for my wife, Venezuela. They want to know number 7, your alien registration number. Well, you can get that off of your green card and or your NOA-2 letter. They want your U.S. Social Security number, and if you have a USCIS online account number. But don't worry if you don't know what that is or if you have that. And then they want to know what your marital status is. Well, you're going to be married, right? If you're going to be lifting the conditions off of this 2-year green card. If something happened during the relationship, during the 2-year marriage, and you and your sponsor, U.S. citizen sponsor, passed away, and you become widowed, then you check the widow block. If you become divorced, you check the divorce block. But immigration also need for you to write down the date and place of where you got married. And finally, on page 1, they want to know the date of when your conditional residency expires, month, day, year. You can get that on your green card. And they also ask if your marriage through conditional residency ended, you got to provide the date of the divorce or the date of the death of your U.S. citizen sponsor. Now we're moving on to page 2. They want to know your mailing address in part 1. Information about you, the conditional resident, the beneficiary. Okay, what's your mailing address? They want to know what your physical address is and any additional information about you. They're asking, are you in removal, deportation, or rescission proceedings, etc. They ask a few questions there, and you check yes or no. Then they come up to 21. If you're married, and this is a different marriage than the one from which you gain conditional residency, you have to check yes or no. And have you resided at any other address since you became a resident of the United States? Yes or no. Very important that you notify immigration if you move, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Now they're asking about your biographic information in part 2, your ethnicity, your height, your weight, eye color, hair color, etc. And you know the answers to those questions. Now we're moving on to page 3 of 11, USCIS Form I-751. Part 3, the basis for filing the petition. This is a joint filing, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So my conditional residence is based on my marriage or my parents' marriage to a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. I'm filing this joint petition together with my spouse if you came in on a K-1 visa. So you're going to check an X in 1A, my spouse. If you are seeking a waiver or individual filing request, you're going to check why you're requesting that. Your U.S. citizen sponsor is deceased. Your marriage was ended in good faith, but the marriage was terminated through divorce or annulment, etc. Now we're going to move down there to Part 4 on page 3. This section is about information about the U.S. citizen or the lawful permanent resident spouse. In your case, as a K-1 visa applicant, lifting the conditions off of your 2-year green card, you're going to be checking your relationship is spouse or former spouse. Moving up to other information, you're going to put your family name in here. Your last name will be your married name from your husband if you took his last name. If you didn't, it will be your maiden name. Your physical address, where you live in the United States, and then Part 5 is any information about your children. When they ask about any children, they want to know the family name of the child, the last name, the middle name, your child's date of birth, any alien registration number he or she may have, and is the child living with you? Yes or no? Is the child applying with you? Yes or no? If your child accompanied you to the United States and you both applied for green cards at the same time, then your child can apply with you. Now moving on to page 4 of 11, information about your children. This is Part 5. They're asking for the physical address of where your children live, whether it's 1 child, 2 children, 3 children, etc., even up to 4 children. And if you don't have any more room, there's a space on page 11 where you can add any additional children on page 11. Page 5 continues with information about your children, and then in Part 6 they ask you if you need accommodations for individuals with disabilities and or impairments, and you will know if this applies to you or not on page 5 of 11, USCIS form I-751, lifting the conditions off of a 2-year green card. Now we're moving on to page 6 of 11, petitioner's statement, contact information, acknowledgement of appointment at USCIS, application support center, certification, and signature. This is where the petitioner, the beneficiary, states he or she can read and understand English, or you may need an interpreter if you do not understand English. This is for the beneficiary, okay, the person applying for the 10-year green card. And then you have the petitioner's contact information and the acknowledgement of appointment at USCIS Application Support Center. You put your full name in there, Mr. Beneficiary, Miss Beneficiary, so immigration can read it. Print your full name in the acknowledgement of the appointment at USCIS Application Support Center. This is on page 6 of 11. Now moving on to page 7 of 11, this is the petitioner's statement, contact information, acknowledgement of appointment at USCIS Application Support Center. Okay, you have to sign your full name, Miss Petitioner, Mrs. Petitioner, Mr. Petitioner. The petitioner is the person applying to lift the conditions off the 2-year green card. Okay, so you sign your full name. If you have a first name, a middle name, and a last name, you include all of those names in the signature. Now in this page here of 7 of 11, 1A, the spouse or individual statement. This is the U.S. citizen, okay, he will check one of these boxes, whether you can read and understand English or whether you need an interpreter, okay. And then the spouse, which is the U.S. citizen sponsor, will put his or her individual contact information, daytime phone number, individual cell phone number, and email address. This is on page 7. Moving on to page 8 of 11, Part 8, spouses or individual listed in Part 4. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this form is a form that is a joint application by the U.S. citizen sponsor and the foreign national beneficiary to lift the conditions off of a 2-year green card, conditional green card for a 10-year green card. So the spouse, the U.S. citizen spouse, will sign his or her full signature name, first name, middle name, last name, so immigration can read it, in number 6, page 8 of 11, and then you're going to date the form. This is the U.S. citizen sponsor who is going to sign and date page 8. And if you need an interpreter, that information will be included below in part 9. Moving on to page 9 of 11, if you need an interpreter in part 9, this is where the interpreter or the preparer or both's information will be filled out. But more than likely, the U.S. citizen sponsor understands English and can read and write English, so an interpreter is probably not going to be required. But if it is, this is where it will be, the information will be put. But if your beneficiary doesn't speak English and she needs to understand what's in this form, then you would use an interpreter. If somebody fills out this form for the beneficiary and the sponsor, then the preparer's information will be completed in 1A, 1B, 2, etc. Only if you have somebody fill this out for you other than the sponsor or the beneficiary. If a preparer's information does not apply to you in this form, if you, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Beneficiary, fill this form out together, then you will put NA in every block on page 9 that you do not use. Okay? You put NA if you do not use any of those lines. And page 10 is where the preparer would sign and put the certification if you use the preparer. If not, you will put NA on page 10 of 11, USCIS form I-751, lifting the conditions off of a 2-year green card for a 10-year green card. And the last page, page 11, is part 11, additional information. If you need any extra space to provide any additional information about lifting the conditions off of your 2-year green card for your 10-year green card, you would put the page number, the part number, the item number in the blocks provided, and then underneath give an explanation. For example, you may not have enough room for the name. Your name may be so long that you have to include it here, or your address is so long that there's no space, you have to include it here. Or if you want to explain about the divorce, or if you want to explain that your American citizen sponsor passed away, you can write an explanation here. It's just a place for additional information. Thanks for watching the video, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, I do a live stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays at 6 p.m. Central Time, U.S., and Wednesdays and Saturdays. My beautiful wife, Karina from Venezuela, will be joining us on the live streams. See you at the live streams, and thanks for watching. And don't forget, I'm not an immigration attorney, and I don't give you any legal advice, and I don't work for USCIS.